Let me check and make sure we're recording. Okay. All right. This is Lee McInnes. I am with the Auburn University History Department. I am, and we are in the process of conducting oral history interviews for in conjunction with the NAACP branch of Lee County. I am doing this interview today, and it is the 27th of October, and it is 10:06 a.m. I am speaking to Mr. Billy Allen. And Mr. Allen, if you would please go ahead and identify yourself so that we have it on tape.
I'm Billy U. Allen.
Okay, Mr. Allen, and you are aware that this interview is going to be recorded, correct?
Yes, I am.
Now, Mr. Allen, a little thing we need to clear up just to make sure. I do not have a release form for you today, but I will get one from you as soon as get one to you as soon as this interview is over, so I can have a signed copy. But you have previously signed the release form for an interview we did last week. And do you have any questions about anything that was contained on that release form?
No, I do not. And as soon as I get the release form from you for today, I will make sure I get it right back to you as quickly as possible.
Okay. And we have been talking over the last couple of minutes about what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be talking about the situation with grocery stores in Opelika. That will be a little bit earlier than what our normal scope is, but I want to make sure we talk about it. We're going to be talking about multiple redistricting actions in Lee County, including the City of Auburn, City of Opelika, and Lee County. We're going to be talking about the Carver Jeter project that Mr. Allen was involved in. And then if we have the chance, if we have time, we're going to talk about what led to the Lee County NAACP branch going inactive, although if we get to that, we'll talk about it. But what I really want to do now is get started. So we've talked previously in the past, and we have exchanged a text message where you outlined some local grocery stores in downtown Opelika, and you identified some as being local grocery stores like Hill's Corner Grocery Store, Ennis Grocery Store, James Brown, and then Stories, Vaughn's, and Potts Seafoods. Now, and then you have another list that lists black grocery stores. Now, I'm assuming from that Hill's, Ennis, James Brown, Stories, and Vaughn's, were those considered the white grocery stores in Opelika at the time?
Those were owned by white individuals. Yes, those entities were owned by white individuals. Yes.
So,
to the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay, and you say they were owned by white individuals, but would black customers shop there? Would they feel welcome there?
Of course, black customers shop there, but as far as employment and customer service practices, they were not fair and equitable at that time.
Okay. Now the second group: Kite Thomas, Stitt, Ennis, Lindsey Jackson, John Harris, and Arthur Jordan, Jim Snipes, and Jesse Bryant. Now, were those black-owned grocery stores?
Those are black-owned, neighborhood grocery stores. Yes.
Okay. And so I'll be honest with you. I looked through about 25 years of the Auburn Opelika News, trying to find any reporting at all on any issues that would have been had between black customers and white owners in any of those grocery stores. And to be honest with you, I found nothing. When we had a chance to speak to your brother, Councilman Allen, I asked him why NAACP branch of Lee County was never mentioned in the Auburn Opelika News. And he had his ideas on that. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, just to sort of set the time frame in what happened and sort of cover the actions involved. Then I want to talk to you about that local news coverage. So what were the issues that were being, well, first of all, let me ask, what time frame are we talking about when there were the issues with the local grocery stores in Opelika?
Well, I was born in 1954. So my memory goes back to about 1959. when I was 5 years old or so. So 59 until the early 70s. 72 when I graduated high school. So 59 to 72 is the time frame I'm speaking about. 1959 to 1972.
And so, you mentioned that there were, customer service in the way customers were treated in those white-owned grocery stores was not up to what you would consider appropriate. Did that continue for that's I guess 13 years? Did that continue for that entire 13 years, or were there actions taken in during that time to try to change that system?
Well. As far as employment and customer service practices in those stores, they kind of mirrored the time of integration and the Civil Rights Act and other lawsuits like Brown versus Board of Education and Voting Rights Act was 65, 68. During those times, the things started to change not only in education but also in employment, because you had the affirmative action and you had freedom of choice in schools, and things started to change around the time that you got those federal laws that changed with Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act and that type of thing. So to answer your question, yes, they did gradually improve, and they were consistent with the federal laws that changed the landscape in America during that time.
Now, did it ever get to the point where and here's the real thing that really I don't understand about. Well, I guess I do understand about the Auburn Opelika News, because I've had the same grievance in the last 18 months since I returned to Lee County. The Auburn Opelika News reported grocery store boycotts in Tuskegee and Montgomery and Birmingham, even in Phoenix, Arizona. But just looking at the Auburn Opelika News, I would have no idea if there was ever a grocery store boycott in Opelika. Did it ever get to the point where the black community in Opelika or in Lee County started taking actions like boycotting stores or taking any public action against any grocery stores that had been particularly egregious in their treatment of their black customers?
Yes, I do remember protests. I do remember boycotts and that type thing. And then it wasn't just limited to grocery stores. You had also department stores like Montgomery Fair, Elmo's, Five and Dime, Woolworth. They also had the same type of employment practices and customer service practices that just were not on a level playing field and equal towards blacks. So to answer your question, yes, there were protests and boycotts that I remember, and I would venture to say, based on, and I don't have any written proof of this, but it's been said, and I wouldn't say it's not true. The power structure, the I guess the white power structure, for a lack of a better term, had control over that local newspaper, and that could be like the individuals that had the big businesses and political offices. They controlled that newspaper. That newspaper pretty much printed, from what I heard, what they kind of agreed to and allowed them to print.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to speculate, and I appreciate the fact that you, the way you couch that statement, and making sure that what you do know and what you're speculating on are clear. And speculations are fine. It has struck me, and again, when we started going back and looking at this project, one of the first things I always do in my initial research is to go back and look at local newspapers to find out, just get some baseline information. And I spend newspaper.com is just, I spend all sorts of time on there looking at papers that have gone all the way back to the early 19th century. But when I went back and I searched on, the NAACP in Opelika and then in Lee County, it just struck me over and over again that there was no reporting on the local branch. I even assumed that when the state of Alabama had to drop their ban on the NAACP when they lost their lawsuit to force them to turn over their membership rolls, that there would at least be something reported then, but it was not. So I believe your brother said that, well, the Auburn Opelika News has never really been good on reporting local stories. They're usually just, use it as a vehicle to print stuff from the national news outlets like AP, UPI, but still, it seems a little strange to me that there were absolutely no stories in the 25 years I looked at on the local branch of the NAACP. That just seemed a little. That's beyond a coincidence, in other words, is what I think what I'm trying to say.
And I agree with you, too, that is beyond a coincidence. And I will even go as far as to say that the same people that owned the newspaper were the same people that were the politicians. They were leaders in the political realm. They were leaders in the business realm. And they owned the newspaper, too, at that time. Now, it has since then, changed ownership. But during that time, I think the individuals that ran the city as far as business and government pretty much owned that newspaper. And I mean that in a literal sense. I mean, they probably was, CFOs or whatever they might have been back then of that newspaper also.
So
editors or whatever.
So the question it leads me to is, without access to the local news, to the local news media, the local newspaper, how do you recall, or what do you recall of how these boycotts and how these acts and protests were organized? I mean, if you can't, go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to wonder, if everybody's going to show up for a protest at a specific place at a specific time. Opelika was, I think, a population in the 60s was around 20 to 25,000. Right. It's not a big city by any definition, but it is big enough to where communication would be difficult across all the groups.
Okay, well, back then, the churches were the center, was the cornerstone, and the main places that communications and meetings were conducted. I mean, if you even go back to Martin Luther King himself, you will see that the church, Southern Christian Leadership Council, which was a church-based organization, and other organizations used the black church and the black minister. They were heavily involved in communicating boycotts and any type of action taken against certain entities. And then you had the NAACP and you had the Lee County Voters League, which were two organizations in Lee County that pretty much had the same membership. And those individuals able to communicate and coordinate activities because of their positions in the church and in those organizations.
So, did you attend any of the protests?
Yes, I was a member in the NAACP back in high school. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. To answer your question, yes.
So do you remember who you were protesting?
One was Montgomery Fair. I remember Montgomery Fair.
And how? What did that protest look like?
It's more like a boycott. You don't go to those stores. It's more like a boycott. And so, as far as open protests, are you trying to get to to visualize a protest where you were out in front of the store with signs and that type of things, and
Well,
and the police and guard and German Shepherd dogs? No, it wasn't like that.
no,
Protests mostly were like in the terms of boycotts.
and no, I didn't expect. No, I'm for a lot of reasons very familiar with Bull Connor, just from a historical perspective. Plus, my father was knew Bull Connor, so I'm very familiar with how Birmingham dealt with protests. But I was just curious as to if it was 20, 30 people gathered in front of a store, how Opelika Police and how Lee County Sheriff's Department would have reacted to that. So no, I didn't expect fire hoses and German Shepherds, but I was just curious how the passers-by and the local police departments would have interacted with the protesters. So,
Right.
But if it was mostly boycotts, that's a perfectly a valid thing. So you participated in boycotts of Montgomery Fair. So did they work? I mean, did the boycotts what effect did the boycotts have?
Eventually, yes, they did work. But as far as employment, they did start hiring blacks. And used to have a Montgomery Fair, man, I forget what they called it, where they recognized the high school students and everything, give them scholarship, and they never had any blacks. They started having blacks for that, and yes, they did eventually work. But again, they worked not only with our efforts, but during that time, that was a national effort to get a better employment for blacks and minorities, and then that's in customer service. Making sure that there weren't segregated bathrooms and segregated water fountains and that thing. That wasn't just Opelika local effort. That was a national effort, and yes, they did eventually improve.
So let me ask you this, and this is do you think the boycotts would have worked without the national legislation that was going on at the same time? I mean, without the Civil Rights Act, without the Fair Housing Act, without the 5 Civil Rights Acts that were passed in the mid 1960s. Do you think?
I think.
Go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead. Good.
No. I think I'd asked my question. I was just adding words.
I think it would have taken a lot longer for them to work. And I don't think they would have worked as fast and to the degree and the level that they worked because of the federal efforts to make sure that they worked and were applied because of the laws and that type of thing. But I think eventually it would have worked, but it might have taken 30 more years or so. I don't know. That's a hypothetical question that's very difficult to answer. But I do believe that the federal government enforcing and even sending the National Guards out with the University of Alabama and other places, yes, they had a tremendous effect on working faster and quicker.
Now, to your recollection, because I found out I was taking a constitutional law class at the University of Maryland, and I found out just sort of by happenstance that one of the restaurants we used to go to when I was growing up in Birmingham, Ollie's Barbecue, which was over on 8th Avenue South, had actually been the target of a federal lawsuit. NAACP in Birmingham actually sued the owner of Ollie's Barbecue, and it went to the Supreme Court. And I had never understood that. I knew we stopped eating there at one point, and it wasn't my father actually stopped because he didn't understand why restaurants were still segregated. And when he found out that Ollie's was intentionally doing that, we stopped going there because my father didn't approve of racial segregation in Birmingham. But there were local businesses that were being sued by NAACP branches and by the NAA NAACP legal fund. Were
Legal
there
Defense
any?
Fund.
Yeah, the legal defense fund. Were there any lawsuits brought in Opelika, or did the owners of the stores sort of see the handwriting on the wall once all this legislation started being passed, and sort of accept that the legislation was what was going to be the way forward, and so they just sort of accepted it?
I'm not certain of that. Now, I'll be quite honest with you. As far as sole proprietors, restaurants, businesses like that being sued by the NAACP. However, the one lawsuit that you give me a segue to go into, the lawsuit that I do know about is the lawsuit of Lee County NAACP suing the city of Opelika, which was like in the early '80s when it was final. And the final decision came, and it was based on the city of Opelika having an at-large scheme for electing municipal government and city officials. And that scheme violated the 14th and 15th Amendment, according to the lawsuit. It was alleged by the lawsuit. And the 14th Amendment, as you know, is equal protection under the law, and they're not being discriminatory, states having discriminatory laws against individuals, against citizens. And the 15th Amendment is the right to vote.
Yeah.
And the NAACP did win that lawsuit because at that time the city of Opelika formed the mayor city council scheme for electing city officials, and they got 5 wards. They had 2 that was minority black, which is Ward 1 and Ward 2, and 3 that are majority white, and that still exists to today. So I would say that lawsuit, which again it was the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s, that lawsuit led to change the city of Opelika government election process, and also probably led to the integration of restaurants and that type of thing if they were not integrated at that time. So as far as just specifically just lawsuits against certain restaurants or individual businesses, I don't recall. But I do recall the lawsuit that the NAACP filed against the city of Opelika regarding how they elected their government officials.
And that's a perfect transition. Thank you very much for walking me through that, because I am looking at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals decision, and the case was Lee County branch of NAACP versus the city of Opelika, and it was decided on December 17th, 1984. Which means for it to get to the circuit court level, it was probably filed in 81 or 82. Now, you were, I believe last week you told me you graduated from Auburn in 1977, and then within a year you were working in Georgia. Did you remain a member of the Lee County branch of NAACP during that time, or were you no longer an active member of this branch?
No, I wasn't an active member of the Lee County branch of the NAACP during that time.
Did you keep up with the lawsuit in the court case? Living in Georgia, were you able to keep track of what was going on within the NAACP within Lee County to bring that lawsuit?
Yes, I did. I had several family members that were still here. My mother and father were still here. Yes, I did, and I would come home, on a regular basis. I was just right in Atlanta, which is 110 miles away. So yeah, I would come home quite often, and I was glad to see that we had reached a point where we could sue the city to get equal representation, and also when I say equal representation, but get representation in the city government.
So you just used a phrase there, you said, I'm glad we had reached a point that we could sue. What do you mean by that? What had been preventing the NAACP from suing the city? Because this was the form of government the city of Opelika had for decades. What finally pushed the NAACP to I'll just use your words. What caused it to finally reach the point where they decided to sue?
That is a little difficult for me to answer, and I might have used a bad choice of words there.
And I do that all the time, so that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. Or maybe you just missed, or what I meant is not what was received by you.
Okay.
What I meant is it finally happened.
Okay.
All right, it's finally happened.
Well, do you think there was any particular? I mean, when somebody decides to take on the city government and haul them into federal court in Montgomery, that's a bit of that's an undertaking. Do you think there was anything, either an event that happened in Lee County that would have pushed that forward? A commitment of support from NAACP writ large that had not been there before? Or do you think it was just a gradual building up where enough people finally said, "Okay, this is enough. We have to fix this"?
I think it was a gradual building up. I think it was a gradual building up, but also it was happening not only in Opelika and it was happening around the state, and it could be an array of things that made it happen at this time. I'm not gonna say something that I don't know. And
okay.
I don't know exactly what happened, but there are some other individuals that I would love for you to talk to that could definitely tell you what happened.
Okay, who would that be?
Okay, Patsy Jones. Patsy Jones. She was the first. She was the first African American that was elected to city council. She was there for 25 years. Let me see. And Patsy Parker. Ms. Parker was a school teacher and also a counselor at Darden High School, Opelika High School, and also Miss Bobby A. Dowdell Floyd. Bobby A. Dowdell Floyd. Those three individuals can give you some history regarding the lawsuit and that time, and what was going on during that time.
Okay.
And Patsy Jones was a city council person, Patsy Parker, and Bobby A. Dowdell Floyd. If you can talk to those three, you can get a lot of information that where I'm a little fuzzy on. They were there all the time in Opelika and can actually give you that information.
I will, and I don't have my contact list right here immediately in front of me, but I will make sure that, here we go. I've got our contacts for the branch. And I
think they might be on that at the end. Patsy Jones, Patsy Parker, and Bobby A. Dowdell. I don't know if any other individuals in your group might have them on their list, but
I will.
You might be the best person to interview them. Go ahead.
Okay. We have a spreadsheet online that I will check, and where we're listing the people that we're interviewing. So I will go back and check and make sure that those three names are all on that list for people to interview. I'm pretty sure that they were already on there, that we identified them at that meeting over at the Darden House the other day. But I will just make sure, and I will communicate those names to make sure that we may not be able to get them. This is hopefully going to be an ongoing project, and we'll continue into the next academic semester, and we'll get them on the list for that. So, okay, so we've talked about the 1984 redistricting lawsuit, but then it's not a battle that is ever won. It's a battle that is ongoing. So if we jump forward, I guess, 35 years, we wind up with redistricting efforts in Opelika and Auburn in the 2021-2022. Both cities had gone to, like you said, it was, and I, looking at the decree from the 11th Circuit Court, I see that there was a whole bunch of lawsuits that came down in a flurry. Mobile versus Bolden, Marengo County, Escambia County, that all happened about that same time. But here we are, 35 years later, just in the last 3 years here in Lee County, and this would have been about the time you became the president of the Lee County branch. Auburn and Opelika are going through the same process all over again, redrawing maps. Identifying new districts, with an interest to ensuring minority representation on both city councils. You were, I guess, the fresh president of a reactivated NAACP branch. So this looks like it came to you pretty quickly as a priority to take action on once you revitalized the branch and became the president. Is that an accurate statement? When you worked to get the branch reactivated, did you see redistricting as an important issue to take on, and how did you come to the decision to make that a priority?
Yes, redistricting was within the top 5 things, and we had other things, but redistricting was in the top 5. If not number 1 of some of our goals and objectives when I was elected president in 2020. I was president from 2020 to January 1st, 2023, for 2 years. I had been looking at a lot of demographics in Lee County. And I was familiar with redistricting based on the census, and I knew the census was being done for 2020. And when I looked at the demographics, I saw one thing, but then when I looked at the elected officials, I saw something different in Opelika, Auburn, and Lee County. I talked to several people in Opelika: John Harris, my brother George Allen, Oscar Penn, Jerry McGray, a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people about the demographics of those 3 governmental entities and the population of the citizens there and the residents. And I do know citizens and residents are 2 different things. Now, and when we looked at everything, we saw in Opelika that Opelika is roughly, right now, based on the census, roughly 39% black, and it's right at 50-50. Might be leaning towards minority more so than white. 50-50 as far as minority and white. And Ward 3 is like a melting pot in Opelika. So we looked at that, and I'm just gonna go through the 3 redistricting areas that we covered in during my president tenure.
Yeah, sure, please.
And Opelika, so we looked at that, and and just like we said previously, the lawsuit mandated 2 wards to be black. It's 1 and 2. But when you look at the black percentage, it's 39, which is about right. But when you look at overall, it's 50-50. So the Ward 3 was a opportunity zone where a ward where a minority could be elected. So we pushed and tried to get Ward 3 redrawn in a way to make sure that all those minorities had 1 person, 1 vote, and were represented properly. Well, I'm getting a little off because you asked me
No, you're fine.
how I got
You're
into it,
absolutely
but
fine.
that's how we did it. Now we looked, and if you look at the lawsuit also for congressional seats in Alabama, and the Supreme Court has thrown it back to Alabama. Alabama itself is roughly 27%, and we use this as a basis too for some of our thinking. 27% black, and the Supreme Court said that should be considered when you draw the congressional seats in Alabama, and 2 out of the 7 should be majority black, or at least an opportunity where majority blacks could be elected, not 1 out of 7, which we have now. So we use that as a basis for our thinking too in Opelika. If you got 50-50, well, that Ward 3 should be a ward where a minority could be elected. And then you go to Auburn. Auburn minority percentage is roughly 37% minority, 18% black. But out of 8 council seats in Auburn, you only have 1 minority, and I think that's Ward 1, if I remember correctly. 1 out of 8, and it's 37% minority. And if you use the concept that the Supreme Court used for the state, Auburn should have more than 1. So we were looking at all those numbers and demographics and said we something we need to address, and we need to address it with full force. And if you look in Lee County, you got 5 commissioners, but you got 174,000 people in Lee County. 27% black, 23% black, 23% black, 27% minority. But only 1 out of those 5 commissioners is a minority. So we looked at that, and we came up with probably the best thing to do there is increase from the commission from 5 to 7 to get equal representation, equity and representation in Lee County. But if you divide that 5 into the 174, I think that's roughly 35,000 people that one person will represent. So let me get a drink of water here.
Oh yeah, you're fine. Please.
Yeah, and so when we look at all those demographics, we just saw that those bodies, those government bodies, the ward or the commissions bodies, did not mirror the population when it came to percentage of minorities, and something need to be done about it, and so we tried to address that during redistricting. So
I will take them one at a time based on the well, I guess we could talk about them as a group, because the outcome seems to have been relatively the same both in Auburn and Opelika. I don't have any information right in front of me on Lee County, but it I guess from the Lee County NAACP branch's point of view, at least in the city of Auburn and the city of Opelika, the redistricting process could have gone better. I think there was some redistricting, but explicitly in the Auburn City Council redistricting, there's some quotes here that city council members from those from that one city council member was not had hoped that there would be a bigger change in the redistricting. How did you think that, since you were the president of the NAACP during this process, how did you think it turned out?
As well as Auburn?
Auburn, Opelika, Lee County, all three.
Okay, in Opelika, I think we made our point that Ward 3 should have probably been drawn in a different manner, and I don't know if it was drawn the way it was to preserve a certain election or not, but we made our point that should be an opportunity type ward. But if you look at the black population there, which is 39%, you got 2 wards. 2 wards out of 5 is 40%. So that's pretty mathematically that's on point. But if you look at it from a minority standpoint, it's not, because minority versus white is about 50%. So, but that's a working process in Opelika. Opelika is a changing a town, and we're going to continue to work to see what we can do there. In Auburn, highly disappointed there. Auburn won, but then again, Auburn has its own dynamics with the university there, and how people neighborhoods are there. The university heavily affects the neighborhood and the percentage of races in the different neighborhoods. So, but overall, it's 37% minority, and we're highly disappointed that it's only 1 council seat there that a minority holds. In Lee County, again, the minority is 27%, black is 23%. You got 1 out of 5, which is 20%. It's a little off, but the biggest thing there is the council people. Each one of them have a huge population that they must represent, and I think people would be better represented, not only me but others, if the council people had a smaller number of people to represent.
So you think there just needs to be? I mean, Auburn has got 8 city councilmen. Lee County has 5 county commissioners.
Lee County got exactly. That's a good point right there. You're right. Auburn, a city of 76,000, got eight council people. Lee County is a county with 174,000 people, got 5 commissioners. You make the point for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just pointing out numbers. It just, and again, you pointed it out that on the on Lee County, that's what 40,000 that each of those individuals are representing, and it's not a full-time job. So
exactly.
Yeah, sure. That's asking a lot of them to maybe. And I'm not sure when. I guess it was redistricted back in the 70s and 80s and changed from at-large to districts. But maybe time to relook at that and see if there needs to be a change in the number of commission members and something like that.
And that's what we're working on, and continue to work on. We're trying to work with our state representative and everything. I think that there will have to be some type of state approval for that to happen, but we think it's time for that to happen.
Yeah, I think, and even in I know they were going to try to fix this when they tried to. I think I forget, it wasn't rewrite the state constitution, but they were going to make some major changes to it. But I mean, little things in compared to across the entire state. Something like the change of the form of government in Lee County has to be approved through a statewide constitutional amendment vote. So, I mean, I don't know what the legalities of that are now, but I'm willing to bet the state government's got to sign off on it somehow or the other, just because of the way politics work in this state.
Yeah, I think you're correct on that.
Okay, and I noticed as well that in the Auburn City Council, there's a quote here in the Plainsman where the representative of the Lee County branch said that the fight in the city of Auburn for redistricting is not over, that is going to continue. So when we talked last week that you had to get 100 people to sign to reactivate the branch in Lee County, you had to get 100 people to sign up. When you were going around talking to people, and when people that were working with you to reactivate the Lee County branch, was redistricting something people were talking about? I mean, was that a motivation for people to to recommit to NAACP, or were there other issues that they had that they were interested in?
Well, it indirectly redistricting was one of the things that they talked about, and that they felt that they didn't have a voice in local politics, and to have a voice in local politics, you must have a representative or a person in office that aligns with your concerns and with your issues. So redistricting, in a way, yes, was one of the topics. Fair housing was one, and in fair housing, I mean the need for affordable housing. You have a lot of individuals that can't afford housing, and that was one of the things that they talked about, and we tried to address that. Employment was one of the things that they talked about. Having being able to earn a livable wage, a wage that you can actually buy a house, send your kids to school, and that type of thing. Crime was one with issues. You know, working with community organizations to reduce crime in certain neighborhoods. Voting rights. You know, the suppression of voting rights was an issue that was mentioned. And there were an array of things, but yes, to answer your question, yes, redistricting was indirectly one of those things that they mentioned.
Okay, well, let me jump off into a different topic, a related topic, because it comes up. I think it hits multiple ones of the things you're talking about in those motivations. The Carver Jeter, I guess, neighborhood plan was something that you mentioned that you were working on. I mean, and I'm looking at a document you sent me for the goals that the Lee County branch had for the Carver Jeter plan, and your name is right up top as Billy U. Allen, president. So talk to me a little bit about what the Carver Jeter plan was supposed to accomplish, and what were the motivations behind starting the action?
Well, as we mentioned before, Opelika has 5 different wards, and the 2 predominantly black wards. Ward 1, you have Carver, which is called like Carver Elementary, and in Ward 2 you have Jeter, which is Jeter Elementary. Those are elementary schools that are in those 2 wards. So those 2 wards are quite different as far as income, education, infrastructure, a host of things different from Ward 3, 4, and 5. Economic development, the whole ball of wax. So the city itself, when Pastor Jones was there, and that's one individual I want y'all to interview.
Yes, sir.
When she was at city council, they came up with a comprehensive plan to better connect the Carver and Jeter neighborhoods to the greater city of Opelika, to make them on a level when it comes to economic development, infrastructure, jobs, education, put them on the same level with Ward 3, 4, and 5. And like you just stated, we looked at the old plan, we talked to people in the neighborhoods, and we got their opinions, and we came up with some suggestions to give to the city on how they can do that. Now, you got to understand the Carver Jeter plan was first initiated in 2014. Then it kind of dropped to the wayside, but we picked it back up in 2020 or around 2020. And as you just stated, some of the things that we think should be done, and in particular that you would like to talk about.
No, I was just, and you answered a lot of the questions. One of the questions I was going to ask was, was this, what inspired this and what got the NAACP involved? But I mean, you answered that question when you said it was brought forward by the city council in 2014, or the city council, and you got and the NAACP picked it back up and brought emphasis back to it in 2020. Is following up and keeping? And I noticed one of the very first things, the number one feedback recommendation was to form a Carver Jeter watchdog group. Did that take place? Is that watchdog group in existence now? And what is it doing if it is?
No, it's not. And that watchdog group was to make sure that this plan didn't go by the wayside again, and bring in the community leadership groups and ambassadors of change, NAACP, and other community leaders to make sure that we accomplish this. Because, like I said, it started in 2014, but it kind of got on the back burner. Now we don't want it to get on the back burner again. Therefore, we said we need a watchdog group of all the community, all of the people that had some type of stakeholders, all the stakeholders to be involved in it.
Okay, so what's the status of the Carver Jeter plan now?
We're still working with the city. We're still working with the city. And the city, they're working with us to make sure that certain things will definitely get done that we've asked for, and I'm not president at this time, so I can't speak for exactly what's been done now.
Okay. But did you consider? I mean, if you said it was brought up in 2014. Well, let me ask this in a broader question. You were president. Let's put aside your assistance in your role in revitalizing the Lee County branch. You were elected the first president of the reopened branch in Lee County, and you served for 2 years. What do you consider your biggest accomplishments during that 2-year period?
The biggest accomplishment, setting the foundation for this branch to never become inactive again. We got a great president now. We got a great executive committee. We got over 170 members, and so we set the foundation for this organization to live a long time, if not forever, in Lee County. And I think that is the biggest accomplishment that we accomplished during my administration. And we have a mix of individuals from Auburn, Opelika, and the rest of Lee County, and we have from professors at Auburn University to anything you can think of. We have a group of people that got great skill sets and can do great things, and setting that foundation is the biggest accomplishment. So
I'm hesitant, and I told you earlier that it was one of the things I listed, but I'm hesitant to ask about it because I understand that NAACP is all about looking forward and moving forward, but since you brought up you wanted to set the foundation for a robust organization that would not go inactive in the future, did you take any time to look at why the Lee County branch had gone inactive in the past? And if you're not comfortable talking about it, and again, if I understand that you weren't, if you're not comfortable talking about it, just say so, and we will move on and talk about something else.
Okay, I didn't intentionally just go and ask what happened. No, I did not.
Okay.
I just look for forward-thinking people, positive-thinking people, people that want to make a change in the community, and just talk to them about reactivating the branch. But to dwell on what happened in the past, but it's good to know what happened because you want to learn from those mistakes. But it was so far in the past, I didn't worry about it so much.
Okay.
Had it been a recent open wound, I might have tried to dig into it more. But that wound had kind of closed and healed, so I didn't. But you can talk. I'm gonna give you 3 individuals that Mike can give you some more information on what happened. Irene Dowdell, Oscar Penn, and Nathaniel Scott. And all 3 of them I know are on that list to be interviewed.
Okay. And you are correct. They are indeed on that list, and I believe that was some of the ones that we listed specifically to put up on the I guess the high priority list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, I appreciate it, and it was it's a question I needed to ask, and it was a question you didn't want to talk to, and I respect that, and I understand your reasons for that, but sometimes to make sure the history is complete, we ask questions, and if we can't, we don't want to force people to talk about something they don't want to talk about or they weren't personally involved with, and so I completely understand your reaction to that. So we've been talking for a little bit more than an hour, just in the formal interview process here. I want to kind of wrap up at this point. We this is a little over 2 hours of interviews we've done. You've given us a lot of names of other people to talk to. Some we have listed. Some I will double check and make sure they're all listed and and why we need to talk to them. So if we don't get them with this semester beginning to wind down, next academic semester, I believe this project is going to continue on. So we'll make sure they're on the list for the students that will be coming in. But right now, as we sort of wrap up, is there anything else you would like to talk about? Is there anything else that you think we're missing from what you've heard from other people that we're talking about? Is there anything, just sort of any direction you think we need for future interviews, or anything else you would like to add?
No, but I would like to reserve the right to continue the interview with you if something comes up.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know I'm missing some things, and you might have some other things that might come up in your mind also. So if you let me have that right to interview in the future, I would appreciate that. The other thing is, I did send you 2 articles. One about Pastor Jones, reflects on her 25 years in city council. And I sent you one about Pastor Bart Parker. The street was named after her here in Opelika. So you can definitely make sure that those 2 people are interviewed, along with Bobby A. Dow Floyd. It would I think greatly enhance what we're trying to do here.
I will make sure that those names. Well, first of all, number one, you talking to me is not an inconvenience at all. It's interviewing people like you is why we're doing this project. So it's at the core of what we're doing. So please do not. If you think of some other things that you think need to be involved, you can contact me. You have my email, you have my phone number, and even if I'm not involved in this process next semester, it's still kind of up in the air. I will certainly be able to. My recordings are being posted to the Auburn University servers. They will be there. And even if I'm not the person you talk to, what we've talked about will be available to them in the future, and they can follow up with you. But if you do feel like there's something else you want to add to it, please just reach out to me, and we'll be happy. Either I'll do that, or I'll be happy to coordinate with Dr. Abe or Dr. Gaddis and make sure that gets done. And again, these list of names, I will make sure, since you're probably one of the best sources of people who we need to interview, since is the president who reactivated the branch. You're certainly a key person we would look to identify who we need to interview in the future. But if there's nothing else you'd like to talk about today, if it's okay with you, I will go ahead and formally wrap up this interview.
Okay. Well, just send me that the release form, and I will get that back to you. Okay.
I will send it to you as soon as we're done. And again, let me again do the part the university says I have to do at the beginning and end of each interview. Again, this is Lee McInnes. I'm with the History Department at Auburn University. We're doing a joint oral history project with the NAACP branch of Lee County, and I have been interviewing Billy Allen. And Mr. Allen, you were aware that this interview was recorded?
Yes, I was and still am aware. Yes.
Okay, and you're okay with us with the interview being recorded in the context of that form that you signed last week that I am going to resend to you immediately so that you have a copy.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So at this time, I am going to stop the recording.